What is going on, everybody? It's another Three Geeks conversation. I am so excited to talk to Douglas Sloan. Power Rangers was obviously one of my favorite shows growing up. I also loved VR Troopers, and it's weird every time they take an R-rated property like RoboCop and turn it into an animated series, but I also really love that. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here, man. My first podcast, second podcast ever. So there you go.
Awesome. We're
Wow.
honored.
Yeah,
Yeah,
glad to have you.
yeah. And the
So,
first one wasn't even about Power Rangers. It was a friend of mine from Matchbox 20 who had just started doing podcasts, and I was his first guest ever, which was bizarre. But there you go.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
awesome. Though. Yeah.
so what made you want to be a writer?
Well, it was funny because I grew up in Scarsdale, New York, and my best friend in the world was a guy named Aaron Sorkin. And Aaron Sorkin and I were like two, inseparable, and we were the ones in school who could write. And obviously Aaron went on a little farther with it, but that was sort of the only thing I ever really had the affinity for that I could make money with. Um, I do music, as you can maybe tell, but to make money with music is pretty tough these days, and even back when. So that's when I started writing. I just figured, you know what, kids TV is probably a good place to start, and Power Rangers was like or VR Troopers actually was my first real job in the industry. And it was a really good first job, I got to say. I mean, it was very, it was sort of on the tails of Power Rangers, and the footage was completely different. It was a different show, but, it was a great way to get my feet wet,
A
as
lot
they
of people
say.
don't know that Jason David Frank was originally wanted for VR Troopers until they kept him for Power Rangers. How did you get involved with VR Troopers? Because I know you and Jason were also friends, and I want to get into that too a little bit. But
It,
how did you
it's
get
a,
involved with VR?
It's a funny story, and it's in my book, and it's very weird, but I will tell it anyway. I was an actor, and I had done a soap, and I had gotten off the soap, and it was hard to get another job, and so what happened was the girl I happened to be dating at the time was a woman named Deborah Shelton, who was uh, on a show called Dallas, and she was Miss Universe or Miss USA 1970. I mean, this is how long it's going back. And her husband, or ex-husband, I should say, they had been separated about a year, was a guy named Shooky Levy, who was, as you probably know, the executive producer for VR Troopers and Power Rangers, and wrote all the music for all those cartoon shows. So Deborah and I are dating, and Shooky came to her house to pick up their daughter Tamara for the weekend. And sitting on a table in the living room was a script of mine. And he was bored, so he picked up and started reading it. And he said, he liked it. And when he was done, he goes, "Deborah, who is this writer? I think he's pretty good. Can I meet him?" And I was, and so she's like, "Yeah, of course." And that was how I met Shooky, literally. And the first thing I did with him was he had a movie called Susie Q. I don't know if you remember that. It was on Disney Channel, and Amy Jo
Yeah.
Johnson was in it. That was a movie concept he had, and he hired me to write the movie. And then, I wrote a couple movies for them, and then he called me one day and he said, "Doug, it's Shooky. What are you doing?" That's how he starts every conversation. "Doug, this is Shooky. What are you doing?" I said, "Shooky, I am doing nothing. What would you like me to do?" And he said, "You got to come over here. I'm writing this Power Ranger script, and it's all fucked up. It's all messed up, and I don't know what to do." So I went over and I helped him rewrite this Power Ranger script, which was called Foul Play in the Sky, which was the one where Kimberly goes up in the airplane. Do you remember that one? He said, and so we finished. He says, "Doug, you should play Uncle Steve." And I said, "Why not?" And so I ended up playing Uncle Steve. And that was the first sort of exposure I had to Rangers. And then I started writing, independently writing Ranger scripts for them. I think I must have written 5 or 6, and then when VR Troopers came along, they were looking for someone to be the staff writer, and they said, "Do you want to be the staff writer?" I said, "Heck yeah!" It's a steady job, which I hadn't had forever, maybe, and it was great, and that's sort of how it went, and but the way I really started, if we want to go back a little bit, was that they needed an acting coach for Jason Frank, and he was the first sort of exposure I had to that show. He came to my house probably 2, 3 times a week, and we worked on his acting. And I was on set with him and coaching him through it and stuff like that. And he was 19. He was a kid. He was super polite, super sweet, and we just became great friends over the years. And he was supposed to be Cybertron, quote unquote, which is turned into VR Troopers. And right when the Cybertron pilot was done with him, the White Ranger episode aired. And that was that. And he was really upset. He was pissed. He wanted to be, the one thing he said to me more than anything in our entire relationship was, "Dude, I just want to be Cybertron, man. Dude, I just want to be Cybertron, man. Why can't I be Cybertron?" And I'm like, "Because, dude, you're the White Ranger. You're going to be on TV Guide. You're going to be a huge star. You don't want to be Cybertron. Trust me." And so he got over it very quickly, and that was that. That's a big, long way of getting around that story. I mean, but
How fun was it to write just Power? It always feels like the storyline is you lose and then you come back and you win and have redemption. Like, is it fun kind of figuring the plot points for that and kind of leveraging the monster battles you kind of get ported over?
Yeah. The interesting thing about Power Rangers is it starts with something that's completely external. Back then it was VHS tapes. They'd flop a VHS tape on your desk and say, "Okay, there's 5 monsters on here. Which one do you want?" And you look through it, and there's a flea, there's a jellyfish, there's a pine octopus, there's all these things, and you're kind of like, okay, flea I can do because you could do a dog adoption, you could do, all sorts of different things. So that's where you start. You start with what footage they give you that you like, and then you pitch them a bunch of ideas, and the one that Shooky sort of is the final say, or was the final say on the ideas. And once he approved something, you just were off and running, and you came up, and it was an absolutely formulaic 100% show. You would do the cold open, little bit of the beginning, there was a putty fight, then what's Rita up to? And then you figure that out. You go to Zordon. Then Rita says, "Well, screw those Rangers. They're ruining my day. Let's send down a monster." And but in the middle of that, there's probably 12 pages of original story that has to be written. And back then, it was 11 minutes of Japanese footage. So the ratio was fairly even, and the Japanese footage was costing them, I think, $25,000 an episode. So think about that. You're doing a show where half of the screen time costs $25,000 because they amortize the buy of 50 episodes over the course of the season. So the rest, that's why the budget was $230,000, was because half of it, they only were shooting half of it. I mean, yeah. It kind of begs the question, why didn't they pay the actors more? But
yeah, we've talked to a couple of Rangers. That has been a common theme.
Oh man, it's so sad, because what bums me out about it is that first movie should have been, and I love Steve, and I love Karen, and I love Johnny, but that first movie should have been Walter and Austin and Twee. And maybe Twee would still be here if it was. I don't know. That's a really messed up thing to get in your head. But it should have been those guys. And I think the movie would have done a heck of a lot better. And yeah, I think it would have been a better movie. But what are you going to do? Chaim held a hard line, man. He did not want to set a precedent for anything. So any kind of increase of any kind. So that's how it went. It was a bummer.
Yeah, I watched something with Walter recently, and he was talking about, all they wanted was a fair cut of, because I was a kid at that time. I know what Power Rangers was bringing in. I remember going to the stores, and their faces are all over. He said even to this day, like merchandise comes out with his face on it. They don't see any of it. So like conventions are very important to like the Power Rangers cast, and it's just so unfortunate. But you came back for Dino Thunder. Was that?
I came back for Ninja Storm and Dino Thunder. Yep. Go ahead.
Which Jason Frank came back for Dino Thunder as well. Did either one have to do with the other?
Well, here's what happened. We had Ann and I, my partner Ann Austin, who's kind of a genius and really good. She was a network exec, and she was the one. If you ask anyone, they'll tell you a different story. Margaret Lesh was such a genius and all this, but truly, Anne was the one who said, this thing's going to be a massive hit. You gotta do this. And so Anne and I were working at Film Roman, the company that does the animation for The Simpsons. And I got back from lunch one day and she met me in the parking lot. She goes, well, we got the call we've always dreaded. And I'm like, what? Disney got Power Rangers and they want us to take it over, set it up in New Zealand and run the show. And, it wouldn't have been great news. However, it was WGA. We got residuals. We were going to get paid for the first time. And so we did Ninja Storm, which turned out, I thought, pretty good. I was completely obsessed with motocross back then. So, I made it all about extreme sports and all the action sports. God, don't ever say extreme sports. Action sports and all that. And the next year, it was dinosaurs. And we thought, God, what are we going to do to make it great? And Ann said, we should call Jason. And I'm like, Jason Frank? And she says, yeah, what's he doing? I don't know. He's running his karate school. So we called him up literally. I remember standing in the hallway at our production office and calling Jason and saying, hey, buddy, what are you doing? And he goes, hey, buddy, what's going on? What are you up to? Oh, nothing. Just doing karate and running my school and stuff like that. And I go, hey, what about coming back to Power Rangers for a season? He goes, yeah, okay, that'd be cool. And that was literally it. There was no discussion. There was nothing. Now, along with that came the fact that it was in New Zealand. Jason had a new wife, new kids. And once he got there, I think he realized that he missed his family and he missed his kids. And so he really, really wanted to go home and visit, and we couldn't. So what did we do? We got him stuck in the Black Ranger outfit, if you remember that. He was stuck as the Black Ranger. And we had a stunt guy walking around the command center or whatever it was in the Black Ranger outfit pretending to be Jason, who was actually one of Koichi's guys who didn't speak English. So, someone would say a line and he'd go, do all the thing. And then when Jason got back, I think it was a month and a half or 2 months later, he revoiced everything, and there you go. There's always a way to make it happen or to make it work with Power Rangers. That's the funny thing about Power Rangers, is that there is always a way to make it work. And that was probably one of our biggest cheats / saves, whatever. But, to have Jason back, that opening scene in Dino Thunder to me is awesome, where he's, running through the forest and jumps off the cliff and everything blows up. And it was very cool. But, and then he came back a bunch more times from what I remember, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he did,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. He was
I
a
have
good
to
guy.
ask. I have to ask, with you saying that you had a love of motocross, didn't you get to work on the film Motocross?
I wrote and
Yeah, so you wrote it,
produced
yeah.
the film
That's what I
Motocross.
thought.
And the reason I did was because I was so into motocross. And, you know, when we had done a film called Johnny Tsunami. I don't know if you remember that. It was
We
a
do. We
Disney
worked
Channel.
with Brandon Baker not that long ago.
Oh
Well,
my God.
it's been a little while now.
Brandon! Oh, I love that kid. He is, well, he's not a kid anymore, but he's amazing. And we just lost Kerry Tagawa, which was like, what? You know, he was that most healthy guy I knew. But anyway, so we had done Johnny Tsunami, and I was like, damn, we should do motocross. How do we do that? And the only way to do it, and the guy who ran the channel's movies was a guy named was a guy named Michael Healy, who's maybe one of the most well-read, well-educated network executives ever on the planet, period. And Michael loved taking Shakespearean stories and turning them into Disney Channel movies. So we took The Twelfth Night and we made it into Motocross. And the funny thing about that movie is, to this day, you know, it gets me meetings. I had a meeting with Brian Deegan. Do you know who that is? His son Hayden Deegan is the world champion supercross racer now. But Brian's his dad, and he started something called the Metal Militia a long while back.
I know Metal Militia. I did not know. I didn't know his name, but Metal Militia, I definitely.
Yeah, Brian started Metal Militia. He was the crazy guy who was like smoking a cigarette when he did his tricks and stuff like that. It was
yeah.
But he's now a dad, and his kid is the world champion. So, and he's got I think they have like 5 million followers on YouTube for their channel. But anyway, I was able to get that meeting because of motocross. You know, it's kind of legitimized me in that community for, is, you know, 20 years now or something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
it was 1999 that we did it. I remember that. But yeah, that was, and it still plays on the channel.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I introduced my kids to Johnny Tsunami and Motocross early,
what did they
mid
think?
last year. They love it, and they've watched every Power Ranger season.
Really?
They're obsessed. I like
That's-
them watching the things I grew up watching, because I'm like,
Totally.
I can sit and watch this with you all day long.
Yeah.
But
It's a
then-
boy and a girl, or two boys, or boy
I
and
have
girl?
2 girls.
Oh, you have two
actually.
girls. Oh,
Yeah.
that's
And so
crazy.
they're really into it. And then they would love if I asked you about Dragon's Race to the Edge.
Absolutely.
You're a writer on that as well,
I
correct?
was the executive producer. I ran that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was very interesting because we originally me and my partner, Art Brown at the time, went in to interview for the showrunner position on that show. And there were 3 other teams up for it, and we did not get it. These people who had written on the Drew Carey show got it for some reason. Who knows? But they hired us to be sort of their second in command. And so the first season, we were the co-executive producers. And at the end of that season, the DreamWorks just decided they wanted to make a change. And so they said to us, do you guys want to take the show over? And we were like, absolutely. Because truthfully, How to Train Your Dragon, the first movie, might be one of the best movies of all time. In my humble opinion, it's just perfect. There's not a thing wrong with that movie. And so
good.
oh God. And I remember going to DreamWorks and having to pitch ourselves to Jeffrey Katzenberg and Ann Daly and all them. And you know, what would you do? Why did you like it? And we had no clue. We didn't know what they wanted or what their plan was for, you know, they had a second movie. They already had a script for it. And so we came in filling in the space between the first and the second movie. And then once the second movie came out, we grew them up and made them teenagers like they were in the second movie, and bridged the second and third movies, kind of, not really. But that was an amazing experience because you're taking a hit show and, Dean Dubois, the director and writer of that show, it's like, that's his thing, man. That's his life is that show. So you can't mess it up.
Yeah.
And, we had dinner with Dean a couple of times and said, look, dude, we swear we will not mess up your show. We promise. We'll tell you everything we're going to do. If you don't like it, tell us. We'll do something different. But he never, ever, even got in the middle or even, he was happy with what we were doing. And it was a funny couple of years. One funny story is on the second movie, we got the script. They said, would you guys read the script and tell us what you think? And we're like, sure. So we read the script and we get to the part where Toothless kills Stoic.
Mm-hmm.
And my partner and I look at each other and we go, Toothless kills Stoic? What? No, you can't do that. Toothless can't kill Stoic. And so we went in the next day and we went to the executive. We said, really, dude, Toothless kills Stoic? Come on, man. You can't do that. And it was like this thing at DreamWorks then for about 6 to 8 months. And at the last minute, they had a screening and Steven Spielberg was there. And Jeffrey turned to Steven Spielberg and said, hey, should Toothless kill Stoic? And Steven Spielberg said, absolutely. Absolutely. It's, it's gravitas. And so there you go. But I still don't think it was kind of the right thing to do. But, what do I know? But it was a great 7 years there. The 8th year, a person came in that had been at Nickelodeon and took over, and things kind of went south at that point, and Jeffrey had arranged to sell the company to NBC or Universal, whoever, and it became it was not a dream work environment anymore. So,
Yeah.
We went on and did other things, and but it was for 7 years, it was awesome, completely awesome.
That would have been a cool world. I mean, you've kind of got to work in all the really cool worlds.
Yeah, it's insane. And how about this? I got to work with Demi and Selena when they were
Princess
15.
Protection Program.
Yeah, in Puerto Rico. I mean, that's was a whole other experience that was completely insane. But they were kids, they were children. Demi hadn't even put a record out yet. She was in her trailer writing songs, and I'll never forget that she came and sat next to me on the sofa in the house set that was Selena's dad, and her and her dad lived there, and Demi came and sat next to me, and I said, so what are you doing? Oh, I'm writing songs, I'm doing my thing. I'm going up to this big meeting for all the cable companies, and I'm going to play my songs for them. And I said, listen, dude, do you know what's about to happen to you? Because you better be ready, because you're about to become a huge, huge star. And I said this to Jason at the time that he was about to become a huge star. I said, you got to be ready, because it's going to get gnarly. And she's like, oh, it's all good. It'll be fine and all this. And it was funny to watch these two girls who both became superstars.
Yeah.
And what happened to both of them. And I say to my dying day that it's parenting. Selena's mom, Mandy, is a very involved parent and never let Selena get away with anything. She was a really good kid. They were, and poor little Demi, she just, it was a little more fractured for her. So, it's always the parents, man. It's always the parents. And Demi, thank God, turned it around. There was a year there where I was expecting to hear that she had passed, for sure. And I'm sure you guys remember that. And ironically enough, that was the year that Jason passed. So it's like, talk about blowing your head up. That was, just crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, So that was that. That's a little too much information, probably, but what do I care? What am I doing?
So I have to ask, you did RoboCop. What is it like taking such an ultra-violent show, movie, and turning it into an animated series?
Well, here's the funny thing. I literally wrote one episode of RoboCop, and that was back in that was before I even did Power Rangers. And so I literally don't even remember what the episode was about. I don't remember anything about it. I never met any of the executives. I never met any of the studio people, nothing. It was Ann and I think her friend was running the show, a guy named Eric Lewald. And he threw us a bone, so we wrote an episode of RoboCop, but that was really it. Most of my experience was at Saban, and it was at Disney. It's interesting because I worked at Saban for years. I worked at Disney for years. I worked a couple shows at Nickelodeon, but we all know the deal there. That was a really toxic place to work back then. And I don't know what it is now, but it was a tough place back then with all the crap that was going on. And then I worked at DreamWorks for 7 years, and then the Nickelodeon disease was brought to DreamWorks. And so that was the end of that. But that'll be in my third book, which will be all about what happened there, which is like, you thought Mayhem was interesting. Oh my God. Hyam's a brilliant dude. As crazy as he is, or is perceived to be, he's not crazy, but as all the things that have been written about him, the thing about Mayhem is he is a bloody genius, and he is unstoppable. He's a force of nature, and you got to give that to him. Yeah.
I know as a writer and producer, you always hope that your shows or your films will just really take over and do incredibly well. But did you have that notion at the beginning of Power Rangers, just how big of a phenomenon that would be?
Not even remotely. And I'll tell you, I was still with Deborah, Shookie's ex, and when she first brought up Power Rangers to me, she said, "Oh, it's just this little stupid show that Shookie's trying to help Mayhem fix, and it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to do anything." And then I saw it, and I was like, "Oh my God, it's really weird." But then they did this dial test with kids where, you get 12 or 15 kids in a room and you show them a show and they have a dial. And if they like it, they turn the dial to the right. If they don't, they turn to the left. The minute it started, the dials all went to the right and stayed there the entire time. So after that happened, we were all like, "Oh man, this might be huge." And then, of course, Universal City, the live show at Universal City was kind of the bell, being rung that there was something going on here. And of course, there were no toys available, and nobody, they weren't ready. So I think Mayhem kind of knew, but he wasn't really ready for the insanity that went with it. It was like, it was a bonanza. It was crazy. And it's for 30 years. He came up to me one day and he said, "Mr. Sloan, I want to tell you something." And he talked like this: "Mr. Sloan, I'm going to tell you something. Power Rangers, it's going to be an evergreen." And you know what an evergreen is? That means a show that goes on forever. And I thought to myself, "You are out of your bloody mind, dude. That show's got another couple of years, maybe." But he was right. 30 years. It's new kids grow up all the time, and although it aged down, it definitely hung around. I mean, my godson Hunter is who I named Hunter after in Ninja Storm, and he was 6 at the time or 5, and he was obsessed with Power Rangers. It was very cool to be Uncle Dougie back then because, you were the guy running Power Rangers. It's definitely And now there's a whole new, adults are sharing it with their kids like you, and it's because it's kind of harmless fun. It's like
Yeah.
back then parents were a little more concerned because it was just, they hadn't seen stuff like that before, but now it's, a family movie is Iron Man, so Power Rangers is pretty
tame.
harmless. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. And as a parent, you would say the same probably. I mean, or
Yeah.
you guys who have kids would say the same. The stuff that's on TV now that kids are watching is mind-blowingly crazy. It's nuts. But Power Rangers, good Lord.
Some of the reason I love it.
The pine octopus. Who's afraid of a pine octopus? Not
In the
me.
water. Yeah.
Yeah. My kids have action figures from all the series. Like
Oh man.
when we got the Rita Repulsa doll, I was like, I don't know. I think I might want that myself.
Yeah. It's funny, man, because Rita was a great villain, and Lord
Such a
Zed.
great villain.
Yeah, and Lord Zed came along, and that the marriage thing was hilarious,
pairing.
and that was Shookie's idea, Shookie and Shell, and that was hilarious. That to me was what was always funny is making the villains funny. So when I went to Ninja Storm, I did that with Lothar and his two dingbat nieces or whatever they were, and I got so much crap for that from the fans because they didn't like that. They wanted serious villains. They wanted Lothar to be a badass. They wanted him to be serious, and they didn't like it. And literally, there was a thread on Ranger Board that said Doug Sloan must die.
Oh my
And
God.
it was in relation to that thing that they wanted serious villains, and so then Lothar, this is great. So all this hullabaloo about serious villains, and poor Grant McFarlane, the guy who played Lothar, had heard all this stuff, and he was beside himself, and he was from New Zealand. So when he came back to do the reunion the next year, he was completely playing it dark and serious, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Well, Doug, they don't like it when I joke around. They don't like it when I'm funny. And I'm like, well, I do. And can you be funny again? It was a bummer, man. But the fans, they definitely speak up when they don't like something, and it can be pretty gnarly. I will say.
Yeah.
As I'm sure you guys are well aware.
Oh, for sure. But with your love of music, was it really fun to compose a Power Ranger theme song? If I'm reading this right, it really probably crazy fun.
It was amazing because here's the thing: I wrote the lyrics, and then I went out, and our composer Bruce at the time, what was his last name? Bruce. I don't know, but Bruce was a New Zealander who used to play bass with a guy named Cat Stevens. I don't know if you ever heard of Cat Stevens, but he was Cat Stevens' bass player. So he was a rocker from way back, and he had a guy who was a great singer, and so they put this whole, we put this whole song together, and it came out good. And I'll tell you, it's nice that, it's nice to have that little chunk of money come in every once in a while. Those guys, those are the people that make money, are songwriters, hit songwriters, because if it's any indication what I made just on that little song, those guys are making, Taylor Swift, that's why she's, worth billions. But yeah, it was so fun. I mean, it was like the first time. And I also wrote all the songs for Emma, for Kira, in that season of Dino Thunder. And I wrote them with a girl named Renee Sandstrom and a girl and another girl who were in a group called Wild Orchid. And that was Fergie's first group, Stacey Ferguson's first group. So that's who I wrote all the Kira songs with that season. And they were fine. And it was amazing that Disney actually let me do it, because they're a music company as well. I mean, it's all about the music for them. So yeah, that was super fun. I mean, even like the Johnny Tsunami sequel, I'll never forget Steve Vincent, who ran the music department, called me up and said, "Hey man, there's this new band and we're trying to get them in something. Can you guys put them in your movie?" And I'm like, "Well, send me the thing. I'll listen to it." And it was the Jonas Brothers.
Oh, wild. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. And it was a great song, and it ended up in our movie, and, it was awesome. But yeah, so now I'm out, telling the story. Have any of you guys gotten the book or read the book or seen my book or
I have ordered the book.
You have ordered the book. Okay.
Ordered the
book. Let me just hold it up, or my sister, who is my partner on this, will kill me if I don't. Here's the book. Can you see that?
Yes.
Morphers, Monsters, and Mayhem. Yeah. Available on Amazon. In the best way to consume it really is the audiobook. I read the audiobook, not, but it's just, you kind of get what it's really about if you listen to the audiobook. But yeah, so that's what I've been doing lately. And I'm doing this covers Saban era. And then I'm going to do a book 2, which covers New Zealand, which is just as wacky because Disney is wacky. And then the third book is going to be about the dragon years. So yeah, man, that's sort of where we're at, and
pre-ordered the other 2.
Oh yeah.
Put me down.
You go. Yeah. I'm glad. I hope you like it. I mean, you just heard a lot of the stories that are in that book, but there's some in there that I didn't tell.
Sure.
That are freaking insanity. Like literally insane. Like when Bulk and Skull were replaced by chimps. Do you remember that whole?
Oh, I do remember that.
Oh my God. It was crazy. That story is like the sort of climax of this book. So I'll leave it there. But, that was my most bizarre moment ever on Power Rangers, was the monkeys. And the fact that they hired non-acting monkeys to replace 2 great human actors. I mean, these monkeys could do nothing. They looked like carpet, just like carpet on the set.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Oh, well, Lord.
Douglas, where can everybody find you online?
You can find me at, I'm on X, Twitter, whatever you call it. It's VRDJS143. And then my book is available on Amazon in ebook, in paperback, audiobook. And, I have a writer's page, DouglasSloanWrites.com. It's a Facebook page. But yeah, I'm, I will be around. I'm working on a new project that I can't really talk about right now, but I will come back and see you guys because you will definitely want to talk about it.
Is it a rock opera? Power Rangers rock opera?
No, it's not. It's it's a new series, and it's based around the huge identity in the space. So I'll just leave it at that. Yeah. But I am writing a musical also. Awesome. So yeah, lots of stuff going on.
It feels perfect for you. Musical feels perfect.
Yeah, it's been amazing. It's been fun. It's been fun. And
sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, everybody like, comment, share, subscribe. The links to Doug's stuff will be down below. So make sure you guys check that out as well.
And definitely get the book, guys. Get the book. It's fun. It's easy reading, easy listening, and yeah.
Absolutely. Have a great night, everybody.